Clockers is a 1995 crime drama film directed by Spike Lee, adapted by the 1992 book of the same name by Richard Price, a Spike Lee joint. With themes of love, violence, justice, and revenge, it tells the story of Rodney Strike Dunham, who lives in the local Brooklyn housing project, the Nelson Mandela houses, crossing paths with various members of the community, including local drug lord Rodney Little, another drug dealer named Daryl Adams, and Strike's brother Victor. Other members include Strike's mother, police officer and community-minded Andre, Errol, a gang member, and Tyrone, a neighborhood kid in the community. The story continues as Strike sells drugs for Rodney, who asks him to kill a community member at the local store, Daryl, for him as something of a favor or work requirement. The reason is that he's apparently stealing from Rodney in this drug business he's doing. After struggling to find the will to do this violent act, Strike asks his brother Victor if he is able to do it. And as we learn after a short chat with Strike, where he implies that Daryl is up to no good, then the next thing we know is Daryl is then later found dead, with various gunshot wounds by police. Homicide detectives Rocco Klein and Larry Mazzilli are assigned to this case when called in. Clocking has to do with selling drugs around the clock, something of clockwork, taking money, dropping off the drugs, and having someone pick it up. Looking into the character of Strike, we see a young man who was caught up in a struggle of survival, different to a lot of guys his age who he's surrounded by. Instead of doing drugs or drinking alcohol, he has something of an addiction to chocolate milk drink mousse, which, just like the audience and where the money for the mousse stems from, gives the feeling that it's something that is overall hard to stomach. He goes along clocking, selling drugs to not just people in the local black or Puerto Rican community, for example, but also the wider community, such as those from a more seemingly white community or neighborhood. He becomes investigated by the detectives when they find it hard to believe that it was brother Victor who pulled the trigger when he's handed himself into police. Earlier, when Strike is visiting his brother at the local bar, he's telling a story about Daryl, which seemingly sounds questionable, saying Daryl's dope dealing and beating women, to which Victor is appalled by, especially seeing that the minor girl who was supposedly harassed by Daryl had a mother who was mad stressed out by this incident, as Strike mentions. Though it sounds apparent that his brother Victor feels that his brother Strike is joking around with him, we see that Victor is convicted for it, even when it's Strike we see who's back around by Daryl, waiting for him after this conversation, hovering with what appears to be some sort of weapon inside this piece of paper, papers such as a gun. In analysing Victor, we find a young man who wants as much as possible to get out of the neighborhood or hood before it's too late. He's been known to be a good, strong, hard worker with his various jobs and roles he's done, yet he isn't happy with the life he finds himself in. He saves money and is doing all he can, but is unable to even see his family, though he wants to very much so. After he finds himself in jail, he talks to his brother who is visiting him and tells him how he was cut by some of the other guys in the jail, and that they even enjoy being in here, which he personally is against. He wants very much to get out because this place isn't for him. However, he refuses to tell the police what really happened when the officers feel the evidence against him, is against him, and that it just doesn't sound right or correct. He's worked as a security guard with some empathy for others in the community before, which gives the sense that Victor cares about the community and wouldn't necessarily be at odds with taking action against someone who was doing wrong. However, we get the sense that seeing he was upset and intent on having the kind of money that could help him see and be around his family more, it's implied that he may have got to a point or frustration that meant that he accepted a whole lot of money for doing the murder, or at least taking credit for it. Seeing ultimately he wants some piece of life that he's been working so hard for previously but has been unable to get. Victor has a good character and record, and so it's a possibility that he's taken this fall because he supposedly won't have to do much time for it if there was some deal being made with police. Looking into the character of Rodney Little, we see a man who, although also has his own store in the area, does all he can to sway the local drug trade in his way. and benefiting from it in ways that go from influence to having struggling and addicted individuals strung out, needing drugs from him, and doing whatever means it takes to getting them. Although Rodney is in this so-called drug game, he explains to Strack the various sides of it, including how God created something better than crack cocaine, seeing that if someone takes it even once, then they are bound to get hooked on it again, which is why he hasn't wanted Strack or any of his dealers to be taking it. However, being this is the fact, and same reason he is not going out of business, and that he is the best businessman, and this is the world's greatest product because of it. He tells Strack to think about that. Rodney also implies that he's been selling and dealing to minors, including young girls, such as the example of the woman who walks toward him wanting more crack cocaine, and how she doesn't look like how she used to look when he knew her as a little girl. However, it's contrasted similarly to the mother who's screaming out to the neighborhood that you're selling death, and she can't let them do that. We also see more into Rodney's past as a young man who was once used by his friend and strongman Errol Barnes to kill another drug-dealing man, which he was initially hesitant to do so. This scenario also played out similarly with Strack and Rodney as well. The issue that we see is Strack confronted and compelled to make this killing, being convinced by Rodney to do it in something of a mind-controlling way. When it's understood that it was his brother Victor who killed him, or at least took the credit for it instead of him, the laughing and seemingly controlling ways continue. Seeing this issue doesn't exactly seem like it's being handled, seeing his brother is suddenly involved in this and is supposedly taking the fall for it. Rodney speaks to Strack in a way that's to make him feel some guilt or betrayal for him, seeing he asked specifically for him to do the killing and not his brother, even though it's something of a smaller issue. Errol also joins in on this condemnation in a way that's apparently trying to control or manipulate him into the person or way they want him to be. After Rodney winds up at the police station as the police look further into the crime investigation, Rodney puts a hit out on Strack, though he is unable to succeed, as Strack is ushered away by investigator Rocco. Up until this point, it is presumably the last moment Strack sees his immediate family before leaving and being seen on a train. Little train sets are often seen and talked about as if trains are a cool theme to be around, like something you used as a kid. Something of a video game, as a train, as we see Strack on later on. With the character of Rocco, we see a detective who wants very much to solve a case with various ends seemingly missing. His research and revision leads him further and further to what's actually taken place at the crime scene with those involved, and slowly but surely begins finding the right answers to a certain conclusion. As he is looking further into the character of Victor and is unconvinced by his testimony, he asks aloud, "Do I look stupid?" With one of the opening scenes of the film where the various police officers are looking over the scene, we get the sense that the officers are quite used to seeing dead bodies such as this, even though even black or African American bodies laid out on the pavement such as this, as their comments go. Some police officers are handling the body with a seemingly uncaring manner, as they toss and turn the body as if it's of not much importance. The language they use doesn't seem to take into account of what the character's family may think, such as the way they describe how this dead guy took some bullets which even went through his back, and even being something special, being compared to Willie Mays for being able to catch a bullet with his mouth or teeth, saying he's got his vote for MVP. It even appears as tampering with evidence even. There's also a feeling or contempt for the people in the neighborhood, as Strack is also offered a deal by the police to look out for each other, for them and for him, even though what they are both doing is seemingly coming into question, as they are both seemingly working on different sides. The police do what they can to hatch a plan and basically separate the individuals involved in the drug trade from each other, so that this occurrence is not taking place anymore. All is not necessarily good with the police, as one of the black officers takes issue with Rocco using the term yo to describe a black person from his area. And some of their methods seem questionable, along with the various language they use when they feel members of the community aren't being honest to them when they are encountering each other. With the character of the local police officer, Andre, we see a man who cares much for the local community, even living in these same projects. And just like he tried with Strack before in getting him to live a life away from the drugs and crime, he cares to try his best at speaking his words and getting other members of the community to do the same, such as the Yankee Tyrone, who admired and was trained by Strack previously too. Andre speaks with Strack earlier about getting some mattresses for the kids, which he was hoping for, and which later Strack did. This talk was Andre trying to get Strack's mind away from the drug thinking and into something more positive. This is similar to the beginning of the film, showing Strack's crew sitting together outside, discussing their favourite rappers, with a couple of the guys being condemned for mentioning how they like positive rappers such as Chuck D and Arrested Development, and how they're not necessarily criticizing any other rappers, so to speak. For the positive rappers don't necessarily have to prove anything with violence or stringing women along. For the positive rappers are just his sort of thing. Although Andre did all he could to stop Tyrone from ending up like the other drug dealers and violent members in the neighborhood or community, including Strack, he's unable to stop him from shooting Errol dead at the end, although after he is questioned and implies Strack gave him the gun, Andre is able to get some sort of justice for him as something of a kid who was just influenced to do this crime. This interview has come into question because up until this kid's confession, they were just speaking to get the facts, and when they felt they had them, they pressed the recorder on and get the words they needed. The police officers feel that this method is justified because of how difficult it is to see justice. They also feel like they are being set up. In Clockers, we see into a world, neighborhood, or community where young individuals, simply by being in close proximity to various others, are influenced and guided in their life by their surroundings, whether it be to get out of the neighborhood safe and sound, or taking on roles for others who are trying to influence or make large amounts of money off the addiction or destruction of others in their community. It shows that with the right decision making and help or assistance from others, with the right research, revision and determination, someone can potentially get to a place where they want to be living, safe and sound, and in any destructive path that they may be confronted by. I invite you to comment whether you agree or not, or if you have any different takes on this film or its various elements. Thanks for watching.